This is just about an example we closed a couple of months ago. What I would kind of say, although it's a kind of a busy slide, just 4 points here. Revisit elements that no longer serve the business well. We heard this even today. Not everything needs to be controlled or managed. Focus, prioritize. Point number two, understand what cloud security really means for your business. This is a new technology. It is exciting, low cost, everybody is happy, but let us assess. Let's kind of go into the details. The third one, the most important, skills gap. It is like a locksmith and a lock. In the olden times, you never had the Nautal 7-lever kind of locks. So obviously somebody need to be trained both in terms of making the lock, and of course the thief had to be also trained in terms of how does he break the lock. Then came the era of electronic locks, password oriented, cameras and whatnot. So skilling our own people, upskilling them is very important. And I think most organizations probably provide lip service to this area. The fourth area is do more work on the collaboration front. I think we cannot be undermining this word collaboration here. And collaboration, of course, is not to say you do somebody else's job. Each person ends up doing their own job. But the key part is when it comes to security, how does one work with the other party to ensure that you're on one hand versus the cyber criminal on the other side. In closing, just 2 points. What is it that you would like to look at when you get back to work on Monday? So first, or one suggestion I would make is ask yourself, have we ever been attacked before? I think to the point that came up on the boards, I would like to see data being shared with the audit committee on how many such incidents did we have this month or this quarter. Besides financial data, everybody is interested in the revenue or the top line, bottom line, inventory turns and whatnot, taxation and compliance with respect to tax. Hemant and team, from an audit perspective, we should start demanding what has been the story last quarter on this front. And I have not seen, any chief security officer being ever called in any of the board meetings. Forget about board meetings, even the company level leadership meetings. I think CIOs have been trying to fight a battle of really being the C and not being the deputy to the CFOs. If there are any CFOs or finance managers here, should not kind of be offended. Because unless and until you provide that level of visibility to these jobs, it is never going to become better. It is never going to impact the organization. From a risk perspective, I would like to see how much penalty, how much money has the organization lost this quarter because of our organization being porous. I don't think that type of a dashboard is demanded even by any of the chief executives or the board members, be it independent or otherwise. So that's the first thing I would kind of urge each one of you to start thinking when you reach office on Monday. Of course, the second part is cyber security specialists, forensic experts. Do we have access to them? They may not necessarily be your employees. I mean, they could be consultants, they could be outside organizations who are specialists. But the question is, do you have ready access to some of these people? Because on the day when you're attacked, you can't go to Google and search for companies who are good at it and then try and get them to do some work for you. So might as well be ready in advance and look for some of these organizations or people who could be your employees or otherwise, who could come in quite handy to help you on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, in banks you're supposed to have. I'm not sure how many you have. It's how many you have, because it's like our country. For every 10 lakh people, we have one constable. So we have police, we have constables. Question is, for a 10 lakh per population, if we have one constable, I'm not too sure what security we can deliver to our citizens. And the same question we have to ask in the bank. Sorry? For incidents. That is correct. But madam, the problem is when an incident happens, it's post-mortem. When a theft has happened in the house, police comes in, theft has happened, not your materials may not come back. And then there is a whole host of stuff goes on. Question is how in the first place you avoid that theft, preventive. So it's not about just quantity of people as much, as the expertise. And I would like to stop at this, juncture, just leaving these 2 points for all of us to think. Monday morning, ask these questions to yourself over this weekend and try and get the answers. Have we been attacked before? If so, what was the nature, what happened, and the details? And second, do I have access to the right expertise if such a situation has to be tackled? Thank you very much, all of you. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I rarely get an opportunity to question you, so might as well be.
Okay.
So, you mentioned that you are the one who believes that it's a myth. If you can throw some light, from where you come from, and assuming that it's a myth, but still we need to do something. What is it we need to do?
Yeah. So the first part, as I said, is we do not have to make it, kind of a issue of the nature, that, well, sky is going to fall down. Security has always been a question across various millenniums for the human beings, different types, different nature. Today it is digital. Some decades or centuries ago, it was physical. That's the only part of the first part of the myth. So I would not kind of say that it is more today, it was less yesterday, or it is going to be even bigger tomorrow than what it is today. It's all going to remain, where it is and not change, differently. Means have changed, mechanisms, of course, have changed. Different technologies have brought us, different risks. It is almost like saying, when the first passenger flew in the airplane, I'm very sure they were all scared. But today, when you get onto the plane, I don't think any one of us, kind of even thinks twice. It's going to be coming down, or am I going to reach the destination? Correct? Because we have secured from a technology perspective. Okay. Secondly, it is evolutionary in nature. All of these have to evolve. It was first that we invented a motor car. The rules for traffic were not invented before the motor car. So as we engaged, as we drove the car around, as highways were built, as small roads kind of jammed, newer traffic rules, newer frameworks, newer directions had to be built. So it is evolutionary. It was never a situation where you draw the rules of traffic before and then you kind of invent the car. No, you first invent the car, a few fellows will die, some cars will meet with some crash. Hopefully we had not some of those people with bad luck, but that is how the evolution happens. So similar I would look at from a cyber security perspective, we are all going to learn. We are all going to learn from each other's mistakes, and there will always be, as I said, a smarter thief to an even smarter locksmith. So howsoever smart the locksmith is and makes a very, very sophisticated lock, you would always find a notch better thief to open the lock. And I think we have a great example in iPhone. everybody was so confident that it is impossible for anybody to open. And the arrogance, I would say, of the company demonstrated that, well, fine, if you can't cooperate, if you can't collaborate, it's okay, we'll get it done. And they got it done. So that's the first part, of. Coming to a second part of the question, what therefore we should do? As I said, without much of belaboring on the point, discipline. We share our data, our passwords, with various people for our personal convenience, and so on and so forth. I think that is an element where we need to understand, in the new scheme of things, how do we do it? It is similar, how many people would you give your house keys to when you are traveling out of station? Would you say that, okay, I know this neighbor several years, let me have my keys with them? Maybe yes, but may not be, most likely not. Do you not trust them? You should, you do. But then that's not the way that you would like to manage your security. So that's first part, which is the discipline. The second, which is most important, is, are we continuously learning from all these events? Or are we kind of going blind to our learning? And it's okay. It was one time incident. It's, kind of bad luck. It's not going to happen again. Or we are going to learn and therefore imbibe that learning into a change, the way we work, the change, the way we operate the company or anything else. That is the second part, which is, are we continuously evolving? Are we continuously learning? The third part, of course, is the concept of risk that you heard in the earlier sessions. In our country specifically, in the context, people don't think that if I have 3 people with 2 additional children on a motorbike, that there is a risk. Because the concept of risk is not, it's different. We don't think that, 3 adults plus 2 children on a motorbike is a risk. I've been doing it past 5 years. Others have been doing it several years. Where is the risk? Now that's a, kind of a situation which is a paradigm problem. The country's paradigm does not teach us that there is a risk. Question again is, how do we translate that into a education, mass level, and make people aware of such potential situations or risks? I think that is a third part of, from an action. Does that help?
Yeah, I think it's very, very helpful.
Anybody else at the back? I think we're all in a hurry to go home.
No, no, I have one more, I have one more follow-on question.
He's keeping me out here.
Yeah, no, it's a gigantic problem, and the nature of the interconnected world. It's a huge problem, and the nature of the interconnected world means you cannot. There is no choice, but you have to be interconnected, and that makes us very vulnerable and very, very susceptible to all this. So is it? It's obviously it's not a binary that I have no choice. I mean, I have a choice to not connect, but it's like saying I should not breathe. That's the way it is. So given this, what do you see? The role of tools and technology in dealing with this.
It's a very simple answer. Role of tools and technology is an enabler, purely. We cannot convert. Let me give a slightly different example. A surgeon uses many tools, many equipments, but it is just an enabler. The tools or the technology is not replacing the surgeon. Howsoever you may talk tomorrow about robots or robotic processes, at the end of the day, there is going to be one human being, if not 10. You may reduce the pyramid, that earlier if 10 guys were doing a job, now one can do. Like in manufacturing, I had 100 workers and now it's all robots. One guy controls the robots, but there is at least one guy. So I think the response is, Consider tools and technology as pure enablers. They are not end in itself. Over reliance on the tools to say that I have so and so tool and hence I'm fine is not the solution. At the end of the day, the person behind is going to be the maker or the breaker. That person's mindset, that person's training, skill sets, etc., is going to define whether it is you are risk vulnerable or you are not.
I think you answered very good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Do we as an IT companies conduct any cyber security audit routinely?
Yes, very much. For example, at least I can speak about my own company. It does.
So,
Again, the question is not about audit. It's almost like you saw in the paper and the politics behind the audit of the bridge, that has fallen. What does audit, what should audit do? Audit is not expected to find each and every problem that you might have. Ultimately, audit is a process of sampling. You do not kind of go and touch every brick on the bridge. So you use some technique and some kind of a sampling mechanism and kind of declare, well, on average, it's okay.
but do we have some amplification techniques to tag some
Of course,
breaches?
yes. Of course, yes.
So there.
Help if you identify yourself. I know that
Okay,
you
I'm
will answer the question accordingly.
okay. I'm Dr. Zamkar. I'm a surgeon, and I was vice chancellor of a state medical university. I'm into now a software consultant for IT. So I
Sure,
work with Persistent.
sure. So coming to your question specifically, yes, audit should be considered as a sampling exercise. It is a average representation. And the principle of average, since you are a doctor, I can take little liberty. On average, if you get 50% marks in your MBBS, you are declared as a doctor. Now, does it really mean the other
So
50% that you have not done,
so
you know,
we accept 50% ignorance.
you accept 50% ignorance? So that's, I think, where the audit is, because that's the first part. The second part is, the point I mentioned on my last, slide. Do we have data which we, openly talk about? Have we been hacked? How many employee incidences we've had? How many vendor incidences we've had? How many customer situations we have had? And all of that. I have not seen in many organizations, I've been in several organizations before. I have not seen. I can talk just about my organization today. We have a specific, security team, and just to kind of emphasize, the person who heads the security activity and the business is actually a deputy chief of security cybercrime from government of France. So he's kind of been in the government side several decades, almost 25 years, and he is kind of gone on to us about 3 years ago. So he leads it. So it's not about pure IT oriented, mindset. So there is an element of criminal, external border being porous, immigration, I mean, all kinds of other, let us say, interferences that have happened, and data gets collected on people, on various events, and of course gets the analytics on top to figure out what's going on.
I will quote an example because I was heading a university, and my university was entirely digital. Everything was digital, and suddenly one of our employee, he was using all my laptops going at home. And then we accessed that. He suddenly came there, and we don't know what he did, and he erased everything of the data. And then we realized he already had a Dropbox connection. So we are all worried he might be passing question paper to Dropbox. Or maybe he could create an IT mechanism by which blah blah such and such number would be passed.
Without
So,
answering questions.
now this is government. So I thought it's a very what you call it as interesting, encouraging issue. So I wrote a letter to IT secretary to devise a mechanism by which a software taken by government should be certified by government.
That is one, and you are familiar with the IT term that people use cases. Ultimately, use cases is somebody's limited imagination, because I may write 10 use cases or 100 use cases or 1000 use cases. Ultimately, there is a limited imagination of somebody to say, well, let's slightly simpler example. Imagine that you have a boat, you're traveling, and so old boat, it's not a new boat. And suddenly you start discovering that water is collecting inside. First thing, what will you do?